Hello everyone, and welcome back. If you're new here, welcome. Today I'm starting part 4, and the final part of my series now calling Evolution versus Creationism. Welcome to the Legion. So I'll have a simple prayer, and then we'll get to the message. Lord, I come before you today, expecting to learn. To learn to receive everything that you have to show us today. I believe that this message is going to come out the way that you want it. Like your word says, only what helps. Every word a gift. We thank you for this time today, Lord. In Jesus' name, amen. We've been on a series for about 4 weeks now. And I've been talking about evolution versus creationism. And this whole series has been just showing you the evidence. The evidence that I found, at least, for both evolution and creationism. Just to put both views out there and give you a good perspective of both sides. It's good to look at both sides. You may learn something from one or the other. And I've learned from both. So, for the past 3 episodes of, like I said, give me the evidence. This time, I'm going to give you the evidence that doesn't have any support to it. So, false evidence. Some of these are full-on lies. Some of them are misunderstandings. It looks one way, but then you dig into it and then you realize, oh, not quite that way. So, this one, if you look at the evolutionists, false evidence, there's not a lot of it, as you'll see when I get into it. There's not a lot of it, whereas creationists, lots of it. And you'll see that once I get into it, there's lots of it from the creationist side. So I'll start with evolution, like I've done for the whole series. And the first one, this is really the only major time when there's any kind of false evidence. I've talked about this before, but it's the Cambrian explosion. And to refresh your memory on what that is, the Cambrian explosion, these paleontologists found this fossil, or a group of fossils, in I think it was the Cambrian layer. And the creatures were from a layer that should have been lower in the rock, or a lower rock layer. They were older creatures. They shouldn't have been in the Cambrian layer, but yet they were. So what they did was they put them down in the layer that they should have been, covered the hole, redug it, and said they found us in the appropriate layer. That's the only time I've ever seen any kind, or at least anything major from the evolutionist side. Anything false from the evolutionist side. So that is very interesting about the Cambrian explosion. But like I said, it's the only time I've ever seen anything like this. This is false evidence. Something that wasn't true. The other one, this one is tricky. The rock that made the Earth. I talked about this before in my first episode here, in the series I should say. You can only dig down so far. And when you reach the last layer, who's to say that's the layer that made the Earth? Or that is, obviously it's the first layer of the Earth, but who's to say that one rock you find down there is the rock from the meteor that made the Earth? Or a fragment of the meteor that made the Earth? There's really no way of proving that. The meteor supposedly had no life on it, so there's no way to carbon date it. And you can tell by how far down it is, but then it could just be a random rock. There's really no way of knowing whether that's actually the rock that made the Earth. much like in this rock in the Temple Mount in the mosque. They say that's the rock that got someone to make the earth. Again, there's really no way of proving that. And in medieval days, there are many objects like this that there's physically no way of proving it. There are many religious items in the Catholic Church in the medieval days, like there was a flask filled with old blood, that was supposedly the blood of Christ. And then there was a lock of hair, supposedly from the Virgin Mary. I think supposedly a bone from one of the apostles. A fragment of the cross that Christ hung on. A whole variety of things like that. Very, very difficult to prove whether or not those are actually legitimate. And I remember hearing an account about the blood that they say that was actually pig's blood, not the blood of Christ. And the hair, Lord knows where that came from. That could have been from any creature. That could have been from anyone. It could have been a random girl in town. Maybe even a prostitute. Who knows where that hair came from? So, with this rock that made the earth, or a fragment of the meteor, I should say, who can tell where that came from? Now, maybe there's a method that I haven't heard of where you can figure that out. If there's, let me know in the comments. But as of now, I don't think there's a way to figure that out directly. So that's all I've found from evolution, false evidence from evolutionists. And now creationists. And for a Christian, this should be embarrassing. So there are quite a few of these false evidence that support creationism. And most of the time, as you'll see, they are mostly to try and prove that humans and dinosaurs walk together. Now, as of now, there is no evidence to support that. I believe they could have. Also, I believe in creationism. So to me, they could have. But as of right now, there is absolutely no evidence for it. So no, I don't think they did. But they could have. It is if they lived long enough. But here is the false evidence from creationists. First one is a full-on lie. They are the ecostones. Now, the ecostones, they're these stones that portray dinosaurs and other prehistoric creatures. And they're these old, they look like they're very, very old stones with carvings on them. Like I said, they portray dinosaurs, as well as people riding dinosaurs, and the natives doing a variety of things. Some of which we know about, such as brain surgery. The Incas could perform brain surgery, and they were very good at it. But heart transplants, that's pushing it a bit. And also spyglasses, that's really pushing it. And also, I think if I remember correctly, aliens? This is sounding a bit far-fetched. Yeah, at first glance, these stones look legitimate. But then when you look at it, the dinosaurs are all outdated. T-Rex is shown standing up, tail dragging on the ground. Also, these from South America. T-Rex wasn't from South America. It portrays dinosaurs that were not native to South America. And also, the heart transplants, the spyglasses, and aliens, all this is very questionable. So I'm going to give you the story behind these stones. There was an American doctor who went to South America. This is a medical doctor. And when he went down there, he met this native. And he saw that the native had all of these rocks with carvings on. So he asked him about them, and he said he found them in a cave. So the native showed him the cave, and they found more stones. So they took him back, and the American doctor put them in a room. And it was kind of like his own little museum for these stones. And people came through, checked them out, and then people started wondering what these stones were. So they asked the native about it, and he said, I made them. This isn't crazy enough, it gets even better. He showed the process how he made them. Apparently he carved on them, and then to age them, he baked them in cow dung, burning cow dung, and then put them in a cave. So people went to search for the cave, couldn't find it. Years later, they asked him about it again. He said they're legitimate. This all sounds really, 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 really weird. Really strange. And like he said, he made them. He later contradicted it, but I'm pretty sure it's safe to assume that, yeah, he made them on a number of things. One, the dinosaur patches are outdated. We now are closer to realizing what dinosaurs actually looked like than we ever have. And also with the Incas using spyglasses, and then there are aliens, and then there are the Incas performing heart surgery. This is all very, very, very far-fetched. This is all very strange and confusing. We've not found any archaeological evidence for the Incas using spyglasses. We've never found any ancient spyglass. Nor have we have any evidence for them using or performing heart surgery. The dinosaurs are all outdated and not native to South America. And also, the creature that should have been in South America, Carnotaurus, is not seen off the stones. Because the doctor found the stones in the 50s, I think? Carnotaurus was discovered in the 80s. So they wouldn't have known about Carnotaurus. So this one is a full-on lie, and I have seen creationists actually use this to say that dinosaurs walked with people because of these stones. They say then the natives knew of dinosaurs because they carved these stones. It's a full-on lie. Now, they may have been misinformed, but I mean, if you look at these stones, it's pretty obvious. They're all fake and very, very far-fetched. I remember seeing one of the stones that portrays all the continents surrounded by water. The South Americans had no idea that Australia and Asia existed. They just knew about their area, the Americas. I'm pretty sure they knew about North America, but that may be stretched a bit. They may not have known about North America, but at the most they would have known about North America. So that one is a full-on lie. Another one, this one's a misunderstanding. Human and dinosaur footprints seen together. Most of the times you'll see a dinosaur footprint with a human footprint inside. Actually, all the time you'll see it that way. Now in nature, yeah, that could happen. That could very easily happen. Where two creatures walked on the same path. That could very easily happen. But let's assume they were real, these footprints. Now, the one that we're talking about, namely, is one found in the United States. I'm pretty sure that it was in the United States. I may be wrong about the location, but they found all these fossilized footprints. And there are many, many dinosaurs and prehistoric creatures in these footprints. And they all have distinct patterns. You can clearly see how they walked and where they went to. Very, very easy to follow, even for a non-tracker, very easy to follow. But then they looked into one of the dinosaur footprints. It was clear the dinosaur had 3 toes. 3 toes that looked rather bird-like. And you see this, what looks like a human footprint inside. Now it just looks like a human footprint. Because it's missing some toes, and it's very oddly shaped, but it resembles a human footprint. This is the thing that questions me. I have studied tracking for a little bit, or for some time, and I can track relatively well. I'm not a master tracker by any means, but I can track relatively well. And humans have a gait similar to that of a dinosaur. Left, right, left, right, left, right. And the dinosaur has the exact same gait. So you should see the dinosaurs left, right, and the human cross paths. You should see a much smaller version of the exact same thing. Here's what you see in these footprints. The dinosaur's gait. And then in one of the footprints, so let's say the dinosaur's right, you see human left. Go a few dinosaur footprints out, you see absolutely nothing. And then in another dinosaur footprint, you maybe see the human right foot. So it looks like you made one big leap that spans 4 steps, 4 dinosaur steps. And then go 2 steps out and you may see the human right foot again with no left foot. And the process repeats in a very, very weird pattern like that. Now, You don't see this in nature. When you see a left foot, you will always see a right foot at some point, unless it's a bird, then you may not. Or if a bird on the ground, then you'll see the burrow. But if there's a terrestrial animal, you will always see, if there's a left foot, then you will always see a right foot somewhere. Sometimes it may be hidden. Or maybe it'll be, if it's not there, they might have stepped under a rock. Or if it may be very, very, very hard dirt, dry, hard dirt, then there may not be a footprint. But this was notably in very soft dirt, because it made the footprint, and the dinosaur was very heavy, and it went down a decent ways. But yet, the human gait is very, very strange. And this is the kicker here. If you look at these, the picture is taken at a certain time of day. I don't know what time, but it's at a certain time. Wait several hours, and the footprint is gone. This proves that it was an optical illusion. It just looked like a human footprint the way the light was hitting it. I know this has happened before with astronomers. They saw this mountain on Mars. It looked like a human face. Well, they looked at it again at a different time of day. Gone. Mountain's gone. The mountain's still there, but it doesn't look like a human face anymore. This is the exact same occurrence, just with a human footprint. It looks like a human footprint, but it's not a human footprint. I think the dinosaur got mud stuck on his toes, and just picked it up, and kept walking, and it fell off at some point. Much like how if you go to a muddy field or muddy dirt, try not to get mud on your shoes. You're going to get mud, especially very, very wet field. You're going to get mud on your shoes. I would say the dinosaur probably did the same thing. Probably got some mud on his foot. And there's the human footprint. And this is a big one used by creationists. They will say that this is proof that humans and dinosaurs work together. Chances are, let's assume they did, they would not be that close to one another without step in the same footprint. Unless it was sometime later and the dinosaur was well gone. Then they may go over and look and say, well, look at this. It's a dinosaur footprint. And then they may step in it, but at that point the ground might be soft, or not soft, hard. And then they wouldn't leave a footprint. Or if it did, it'd be hardly even noticeable. So the next one, again, this one's a misunderstanding and a lie. Modified cave paintings. Now, cave paintings are very good to see what lived during a certain time, because these were made by people thousands of years ago. And they saw creatures that are now gone, such as woolly mammoth, woolly rhino, American lions, things like that. All these creatures are long gone, and most likely will never be seen again. So, very, very, very interesting to see and very informative. The cave paintings are really quite something to see. I've never seen any in person, I've just seen pictures, but they're still quite impressive. Very nice to see. So, there was this one I know for a fact was in the United States, southwestern United States. And it looks like a pterosaur. So this cave painting, it looks like a pterosaur. To me, it doesn't look like a pterosaur. If it is, it's a very, very strange pterosaur. You have the head, which looks like a pterosaur head. You see the beak and the crest. But then the wings look wrong. Very wrong. The wings look like a flag, and one is bigger than the other one. To me, the wings just don't look right at all. And I've seen in creationist books and other sources where it looks like they say it's a pterosaur. But to me, I've never really seen pterosaur there. It just doesn't look right. But then they say it's a pterosaur. But to me, it just never looked right. And this is what is noticeably different about it. Or what really makes it stand out from the rest of the paintings in the area. You see the one paintings, and then if you look at this one has chalk around it. It's outlined in chalk, whereas the others are not. Which suggests that someone else did it at some point, possibly later or at the same time, with a different material. Now, artists are not going to change their medium. Maybe for experimental reasons, maybe they want to try, but if they know it works for them, they're not just going to switch and try and make a beautiful picture with a medium that they're not familiar with. Like, I use a lot of colored pencils. I'm not just going to jump and try to make a picture out of paint. I'm not very good with paint. I'm good with colored pencils, but not good with paint. So for me to make a picture out of paint, it's not going to look good the first time. After some practice, it might once I get a feel for the paint. But I know it works for me. Colored pencils work very well for me. So I'm not going to stop doing it. I'm not going to stop with colored pencils because they work very well for me. Most artists are that way. So for the natives, they would have been the same way as well. They wouldn't have made one picture, then suddenly get a piece of chalk and outline the other one. It's not going to work for an artist. So that makes it stand out. But also if you look closely, you see that it has faded in some areas. And this is really interesting. It is the pterosaur was painted over an older picture of a man and a buffalo. You can clearly see that what they did was, whoever did this painted the person's arms and head as the pterosaur head, and then the legs were the neck. And you if you look at this picture, you will clearly see it. Whereas faded, you'll see the human legs right here on that pterosaur's neck. Which, you could say this is a form of graffiti. Someone decided to modify something that someone else already made. They just mess with it at some point. When? I don't know. But at some point they mess with it. My guess is probably relatively recent. And they ruined the picture. And they painted over it and made it look like a pterosaur. So that it looks like the natives made this picture. And really they didn't. So there's that one, and many creationists will say that this is proof that the natives saw this and painted it. Now, some creationists, they might just be misinformed, and they may not know that it's a fake. But I think they should do a little more research into it and see what it really is. And then this is another one. This one's not quite as common, but it's here. Misinterpreting ruins. One ruin, namely, is a ruin in India, or at least around the rainforest in India. And there's this one temple there with carvings of all sorts of creatures that are native to the Indian peninsula. And there's one that really sticks out. It looks like a stegosaurus. You can see the dorsal plates. There's the head, here's the tail. It's got stocky limbs. But something doesn't look right about it. Much like with a lot of these, something doesn't look right. For one thing, it's missing its tail spikes, and the head is way too big, and it has ears. Now, we don't know exactly what the stegosaurus looked like, so he could have had ears. He could have had ears. Interesting to think about. Probably didn't, but he could. You know, however many years ago, we didn't think dinosaurs had feathers, but it turns out they did. So it looks like a stegosaurus, but like I said, something doesn't look right about it. It's missing some vital parts to it. And also, the tail's dragging. Again. Almost sounds like it's starting to be man-made. Well, it's not recently made. It was original artwork on the temple. It was not modified recently. So this is original artwork on the temple. But it just doesn't look like a stegosaurus. It does, but at the same time it doesn't. But one thing that's very interesting is that it looks very similar to an Indian rhino. Indian rhinos have big ears and no horn. This thing has a big head, ears, no horn, and a short tail. So that helps explain it. Indian rhinos have been around for some time. The natives of India would have seen them when they built this temple, and they most likely would have put them on the temple decorations, carved them into the stone. But then how does that explain the dorsal plates? Leaves. If you look at some of the other pictures, you'll see that they are decorated with leaves around them. This is most likely the same thing. Leaves around the rhino. So that explains that. It's a rhino, not a stegosaurus. It just looks like a stegosaurus, but it's not. Some creatures I have seen, they will use to say that they saw a stegosaurus. No, they didn't. It's a rhino. You're just misinterpreting it. That's an honest mistake. You know, that could have happened. I mean, when I first saw that, I thought it was a stegosaurus, but then I realized it's not. After I dug into it, I realized it's not a stegosaurus. It's a rhino. It's an Indian rhino. So, those are the fake evidence, the false evidence for both theories. And really, Christians should be ashamed of what creationists do with all these. They're fake evidence. And if you're a Christian watching this, don't believe it. Do your research and see which piece of evidence is true and not. And then go from there. A lot of times, the evolutionist is going to be the true one. They're going to be the ones that have the most accurate interpretations of these fossils, not the creationists. And really, as a Christian, Christians should be embarrassed by this. And probably shouldn't listen to it anymore. So, that's it for today and for this series. So I'm going to give you your weekly assignment, and if you're not familiar with this is just a little exercise that will help you develop spiritually, and will give you more knowledge. Just a little exercise. This one is to research this. Research this and understand both sides. I recommend looking at both sides. That way you get the full picture. So that's it for today, and for my to fight the good fight. If you've never accepted Jesus Lord of your life, but you would like to, it is very, very simple and easy to do. You don't have to pay penance. You don't have to do a whole lot of things to get rid of your sins. Jesus already did it for you. Some 2,000 years ago on the cross. He already paid the sins for you. Kind of like someone who made a mistake and his brother goes to jail for it. Not that they got the wrong person, just his brother stood up for the person who made a mistake and said, I'll take the punishment. And that's what Jesus did to you 2,000 years ago. He died on the cross so that you wouldn't have to. He died on the cross so that you come before God clean and pure, as if you did nothing wrong. So if you want to become a Christian, if you want to become born again, very simple. All you do is say this prayer after me. So, why don't you be after me? Lord, I come before you today, admitting that I'm a sinner. But your word says, he that comes to me, I will not turn him aside. And your word also says, he that calls upon the name of the Lord and believes in his heart that Jesus died and was raised from the dead, he shall be saved. So Lord, I believe that you died on the cross and that you were raised from the dead. Jesus, come into my heart. My life is yours. Now do something with it. I thank you, Lord, that I am saved. In Jesus' name, amen. If you said that, you're now a citizen of heaven. That's all it takes to get into heaven. I'll see you next week.